What's up guys, today we have Bren on the show, a purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu that used to train at Standard Jiu-Jitsu with Greg Sodders. Bren is very much into the ecological approach and has a YouTube channel all about it and movements, as Bren is also a movement teacher. I highly recommend checking him and his channel out. I pull guard to start because sometimes I'm a little bit lazy and I don't want to wrestle. As I pull guard, I position my feet in between Bren's legs. I'm shin to shin on Bren's right leg, and I'm using that to help pull Bren's leg to me and position my hips underneath Bren's hips. With my hips directly under Bren's hips, I have a lot of control over his movement. There are different ways to position my feet from here, and the configuration I go for is reverse X guard. I'm using my legs to stretch Bren out and force his hands to the mat. This makes his legs feel light and easier to move around. From here, a really common and effective move is a saddle entry, where you pull that far leg to you and enter into this leg configuration known as the saddle. I really like that move, but I'm really exploring calf slicers a lot recently, and the calf slicer is what I'm gunning for right now. But I lose the leg as I adjust my positioning, though I still have my hips underneath Bren's hips, which is advantageous, provided that I keep my legs between our hips. Without my right knee between us, Bren would just drop down easily to mount. As Bren tries to backstep out of my X guard, I again enter into the calf slicer. But I'm trying to be a bit too flowy, which I sometimes do, and I should have been a bit more assertive as Bren again escapes my calf slicer attempt. I needed that leg bent, and he did a good job straightening it. Now I think about entering a leg entanglement, but I'm unable to capture Bren's knee line, meaning I'm unable to attach to Bren's upper leg with my legs. I again try to get both my feet on the inside, but I miss getting my left foot in there as there's not enough space. I try to see if I can quickly off balance him, but I can only move his hips a little bit. But now I have Bren in my half guard butterfly, which I'm happy with as I do pretty good work from here. To counter Bren's underhook, I'm often happy to work with an overhook, but I decide that an underhook will probably serve me better against Bren right now. Look how I shift his weight to his right side, causing him to post out and lose that underhook. It gives me enough space to take an underhook for myself. Sensing the ground that I've gained by taking the underhook, Bren tries to disengage, and I try to quickly sweep him as he does. But I couldn't rotate him enough and he falls to his shoulder. Sorry, Bren. Still, I'm in a good spot with my hips underneath Bren's hips. A lot of my attacks have failed, and now I'm thinking I gotta be more assertive and get the job done with a bit more urgency. I start pushing Bren away, and he overcorrects by coming a bit too close with his head. And I snatch up the front headlock, but he's able to pop his head out and escape. This is my first time rolling with Bren, and I'd seen from the rounds he did earlier that he's a guy that doesn't make things easy. He fights off sweeps, he fights to keep scrambling, and he's a hard guy to control. And he's been doing that by prioritizing keeping his hips off the mat. And that's exactly what he's been doing here successfully. So now I'm thinking, game on. I don't want to keep failing at the end stage of my attacks. More effort is required. Again, look how I off-balance Bren to make space for my own underhook. I'm thinking maybe I'll start attacking with the dogfight, but Bren takes his own underhook as I transition, which is just a reminder that more effort is needed on my part. So I keep pursuing and I'm able to get underneath Bren's arms for the double leg. In wrestling, the first line of defense is the head, which I've already beaten by getting my head lower than Bren's head. The second line of defense is the hands or arms, which I beat by getting underneath them. And the last line of defense is the hips, which I'm working on beating by getting his hips to the mat. But look how Bren doesn't give up easy. His hips are back up and off the ground. But eventually I do get his hips back on the ground, and now I'm intent on keeping them there. One of the most unforgettable experiences in my life happened back in 2012 when I married my wife, Nikki. We got married on a Friday, and the very next day, we were sitting inside an arena for Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva 2. The energy in that building was insane. It was all emotional, hyped up, and surreal. And somehow, I was there to see it all live, right next to the person I just married. That night stuck with me, not just because of what happened in the Octagon, but because it was one of those moments that you never forget. It made me realize how special it is to be there in person when something like that happens. And that's why for my next UFC live event, I'm going to get my tickets from Game Time. Game Time is the easiest way to buy last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, or theaters in your city. And you can save up to 60% off when you do. You can see panoramic views from your seat in the app as you buy. And they guarantee you the lowest price, or they'll credit you 110% of the difference. And you can save even more by choosing your section and letting Game Time choose your seats. So if you want to make memories such as this for yourself, then go to the link in the description to download the Game Time app and use code JTJJ for $20 off your first purchase. I start pulling Bren away from the edge of the mat, and as I do, Bren gets his hips off the mat. Bren really understands the assignment and doesn't make things easy. I try to quickly leg drag and drop down to a guard pass, but Bren retains his guard. But I know once I'm on top of someone, I'm very hard to get off, so I'm feeling pretty confident now that I can keep control of Bren. I've got him in this sort of side smash position with his legs and knees pointing away from me. Naturally, one of Bren's goals to progress is to get his hips back facing me, which he mostly does. However, I knee slide before he can progress further. Before I can completely settle, Bren starts again getting his hips off the mat. It would have been safer for him to do so if he could do so with his arms in front of me. With me already behind his elbows and taking a seatbelt grip, I start working to take the back. I need to get his hips back to the mat, so I pull him to the side, causing his hips to fall over his right leg, which was supporting his weight. Bren does a great job sliding his back off my chest, but I just take chest-to-chest connection instead. I originally try to get underneath the elbow, but then I see this big gap to go inside the elbow. Bren should have kept his elbow tighter to his body. His hand is stuck in there, and while I can choke him with it in there, it does make it harder. So I work to get his hand out of there. I'm very confident in my arm triangle and consider it one of my best attacks. I have a video all about arm triangles if you want to check it out. We start again, and I take a reverse De La Riva guard. I then off balance and push Bren to his left, positioning the majority of his weight to that side. That gets his weight off of me and gives me space to grab his leg with the intent of wrestling up. However, Bren senses this and keeps his weight down. Now, wrestling up will be harder, but the grip on his leg is essentially an underhook on the leg, and from here, it's easy to transition to the underhook on the body. I then get to my knees, which positions my hips off the ground, but Bren builds even more height with his hips and frees his leg. I've talked about the importance of hip height to win scrambles many times in the past, and this is a really good example. I keep a hold of Bren's leg, which leads Bren into the front headlock. To counter his front headlock, I perform a sit-through and then wrestle his hips back to the ground. This is a move that I showed Bren and the class prior to this open mat. I then saw Bren really exploring the movement during class and while rolling, which I thought was really cool to see, as he said he previously hadn't explored the sit-through as a way to counter the front headlock. I really like Eco, but I think that many Eco guys are too hardcore in their conclusions about how to apply the science to a jiu-jitsu practice. I think there's absolutely a time and place to show moves and let students explore things without resistance, but I also think that class should be live the majority of time, with CLA or games being the primary way to acquire skill. Bren and I share our thoughts about this in a podcast that we did, all about applying ecological dynamics to jiu-jitsu practice. I start to backstep on Bren to clear his legs, but I wasn't able to pin him down enough as I did, and he starts to threaten the wrestle up, so I grab a hold of his leg to stop him. Keeping his leg and foot off the mat elevated stops him from rotating towards me. As you can see, when I let go, he's able to rotate towards me and get his hips off the ground. But watch my right arm beside his neck. It's waiting for him. A trap is set. I give him what he wants, but under my terms and conditions. I sink in the arm in guillotine, and that's all she wrote. We start again, and as he comes in, I grab with my arm behind his knee to use to wrestle up. I'm unable to get my hips off the ground, but look what I do. I scoop my butt out to make space for my left foot to come through to the inside between Bren's legs. Now again, my hips are under Bren's hips. We recognize from this roll that this is something that Bren needs to work on preventing, so we did some games or CLA to help with that. The idea being that with repeated exposure in a live environment to the problem, Bren will improve and acquire skill in this area, compared to statically repping a solution over and over without resistance. That's really what CLA is all about, getting so many touches in one area to improve on. I have Bren in single leg X, which is basically the ankle lock position, but with his hips off the mat. I let him start to pull his foot out so I can trap his heel onto my chest for an Aoki lock. At this time, I was still very new to Aoki locks, and I can already identify now what I could have done better. I should have put my left instep or butterfly hook into his right thigh. But like I said, I literally just learned them. I found it helpful to try them without resistance first, and then repeatedly try to hit them in training. I found those unresisted reps helpful, but I knew that repeated unresisted reps weren't going to magically translate the skill when resistance is added. So in my eyes, the devil is in the dose. Watch as I pull Bren forward, causing him to overextend with his weight past his legs. This allows me to lock up an omoplata. However, I remember that Bren has an injured elbow, and I'm not sure which arm that it is, so I let go of it to be safe. Safety is always priority number one, and anyone that says otherwise is a big number two. Bren and I both have CLA courses available for purchase. I put the link to both of them in the description. Alright, thank you for sticking around until the end of the video. If you're still here, please leave a comment or a fist bump, and I'll see you guys next time.